alien in the sense that he was sitting and dreaming, this is my guy to take over?
He is brilliant enough to be that kind of person. I don't know. It felt a little bit like Willy Wonka. You know what I mean?
But John claims, he heard you do one joke and said, I think maybe it was from your Letterman shot when you did stand up.
Right.
And he claims he heard you do one joke and he said, that's the guy who's going to take over my spot.
Yeah.
Was it from that Letterman thing?
He never told me that. You're telling, I know from the show, someone said that they were watching a clip together with the producers, and he said, oh, that's the guy that can take my seat.
Your Letterman spot was really good how many years ago was that? Before you were on the Daily Show?
Well, it was like 7 years ago now, maybe.
7 years.
Yeah.
Were you nervous going on Letterman like that and just doing stand-up, pure stand-up?
No, not really.
Because you had done it so much.
No, not really. No, it's just because like Letterman and Leno and all of those shows weren't big in my world growing up. So I didn't have that. You grew
up in South Africa, so you didn't sit there and idolize Dave.
Exactly.
So you were like, I'm going on some dumb show.
No, not a dumb show. I was like, this is a big show. But for me, I didn't have the idea that it would make or break my career.
Right.
Whereas a lot of American comedians have this thing where they go, if I get on Letterman, if I get on Leno, then it's like I get the sitcom. And I didn't even know this world. So for me, it was, oh, this is amazing. I get to do stand-up on a big late-night talk show. I
thought you were amazingly relaxed in that appearance. And then when you did the routine about your mom yelling at you in Click, like my mom would yell at me.
In Xhosa, yes.
However you do that, that's great. I didn't realize your mom actually really did speak with that.
Oh yeah, Xhosa, yeah. That's my entire family. Those are all my friends. That's everyone.
I always thought that was a bullshit language. No, they really didn't exist.
No, well, what you see in your movies is bullshit.
It is.
Yeah, the way in movies.
What does Click actually sound like?
Now it's changed.
If your mother was yelling at you,
yes,
when you were growing up,
her favorite phrase to say to me should be like, yeah, that's all you hear.
That's hard to do. It's murder on the tongue.
Well, if you're used to it, you're used to it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's,
it is. I don't think most people realize that you're a very accomplished stand-up comedian. So getting back to the Daily Show for 1 second, because I'm curious about this, knocking out a show every day, you say the experience has changed.
Right.
What is your day like when you have to do this thing?
So every day now, the day used to be I would watch the news. Now I just
What would you watch?
I would watch. I tried to watch everything. I'd watch like CNN. I'd watch MSNBC, and then I'd watch like the morning, like CBS This Morning and AB Good Morning America.
Do you watch it with a group of writers together?
No, I'd watch it alone, and then I'd go into the office, and then we'd watch highlights together.
I would think watching Fox News would be essential because
no, but you see, this is what I realized though. How it is, I realized that like cable news in America is not news, so I don't watch it anymore. It's opinion. It's just like people.
That's true.
It's just people fighting and it's opinion, but you're not informed. And I don't even say this to try and fight with people. I say this as someone who grew up in a world where news was boring and informative. When I was growing up as a kid, I used to sit there and they'd be like, and in Burkina Faso, this is happening. I was like, man, I don't even want to know about Burkina, but I knew now.
I find the best material in terms of topical material comes from the New York Times for this show. For me, I mean.
That makes sense.
When I read the New York Times, I get informed.
Right.
And then I can kind of say, I could do something about that.
Right.
So you watch a bunch of news shows.
I used to. Now I don't.
No more.
No.
Why?
Now, because I'm not going to tell my audience what am I learning from those shows? I will just know that two people are going to come on TV. One is going to say Nazis are good, Nazis are bad. They fight about that, and then they move on to the next show. It's a lot of just opinions and fights on cable news.
So then what's the prep?
So I just read the news now.
Right.
Read the news, and then I try and find, like for instance, CBS This Morning and ABC and those types of news, breakfast morning-y shows put together good packages that tell you what's going on. And then we just try to provide context. So we'll watch that together. We go, what's the news?
Do you ever get confused that the show is not a comedy show, but it's actually we're trying to inform people?
Never.
Is the mantra we always have to be funny?
Never. I've never lost that. I've never gotten confused.
In other words, when you're really pissed off about something, and even Jon Stewart would go in that area sometimes. He would always try to be funny, but sometimes it can run the risk of becoming a preachy news kind of thing.
I've never. John actually warned me about that. He said to me, this show deserves a host who is not angry. That's what he said to me. And I think he said that on air as well. But he said to me, enjoy the amount of time that you're not angry. He said, enjoy that you still can make jokes. Enjoy that you can find a way to use humor to dissect what's happening. Because he said a day will come when you become so angry and frustrated that you don't think anything is funny anymore.
So in your mind, who is the audience for The Daily Show? In other words, when you sit there and you're writing this comedy material, who the hell is watching this thing?
It's
Is it the college student? Who is in your
no, it's
mind
you know
when
what
you're
it's grown, Howard. It's grown, and it's I've been really lucky, you know, because when we started, obviously we lost the initial viewers who left with John.
right?
A lot of the older viewers said, "Well, I guess you know now it's not our show."
In
And
other
then
words, doesn't matter
yeah,
if it ain't John. I'm
right,
not interested.
right, which makes sense.
And you had a big drop off.
And then what happened is we just had to slowly build a new audience, and then the old audience came back, which was really interesting.
Were you personally insulted when they left? Just
Not
because,
at all.
I mean, it's sort of the cult of personality
Not
that
at all.
John leaves, and
No, I've done that. How many times I would stop watching a show because somebody, I do that. Like we all do that as people.
Were you afraid that the network would say to you, "Listen, you're a good guy. We like you. You're likable. You know, but you're losing our audience."
Right.
Were you afraid they wouldn't give you that window, that time to rebuild?
No, the only thing I wasn't afraid of was the network.
Did they meet with you regularly? Did they start when they saw the drop off? Did they start to say, "Listen, buddy,
No,
you don't know
no.
everything. We're going to teach you how to do
No,
this"?
I was lucky. I inherited the same team that started the show with John.
Right.
So, for instance, Doug Herzog and Michelle Gainless, they were there when John started. So for instance, they remembered when John, people were like, "Oh, John won't be able to do the show." When Craig Kilborn was doing it, and I know now, if you said that in today's world, people would be like, "I'm sorry, what?"
Yeah.
Yeah, but they remember a time when people were like, "Jon Stewart, the guy with the failed, he has 7 failed shows. How could he ever take over from the amazing Craig Kilborn? That's
You're right.
impossible."
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Craig Kilborn was the guy who started the Daily Show.
And he was at that time, he was the hottest. I mean, he got poached from the Daily Show. He was so hot.
Yeah, he kind of blew it. Is there a lesson in there that you have to stick with this thing? Do you ever say to yourself, maybe it's time for me to move on? And by the way, what is John doing now? Do you understand what he says he's happy? I've had him on the show. I love the guy. But what is he doing? He seems like too young to be kind of retired.
I don't know. I think he's on a farm. And then I see him do stand up. And then sometimes he'll pop into the show, and then he's doing a movie now. I know that he's directing a movie.
Does he try to advise you ever?
Never.
Do you ever pick up the phone and call him and say, "What do you think I should be doing?"
No, I call him to talk life.
You do?
Yeah. The one luxury I always promised. I said I promised John that I would not make him work in a job that he's retired from.
Right.
So I said, I promise you, I'm not going to do that to you. You're my friend.
Don't you think he could be insulted
friends.
by that? I bet you he sits at home sometimes and goes, Trevor never picks up the phone and says, and asks me for my counsel.
The thing he always liked is he liked that I wasn't going to try and do Jon Stewart. He liked that I was going to let his legacy live as his legacy and not try and emulate his thing and try and replicate his thing.
Yeah, the thing he said about you was, he reminds me of myself, but yet he has his own take on things.
Right.
And that's as good as it gets.
Yeah. And that's all I'm trying to do in life. On the show and stand up, everything is just, I'm trying to hone my point of view, make people laugh. And I find the world interesting. That's why I talk about the world. I don't do it it's not a reverse thing. I'm not going, make a show about the news. I just like the news. I like things that are happening in the world, and I like making jokes about it.
Do you think Samantha Bee, John Oliver, those types of people who worked on The Daily Show,
yeah,
do you think they were pissed off that you got the gig?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think John is different because like he wanted to do what he has done, and I mean he's gone and he's done it. You know, Samantha Bee, I never knew at all, so I don't know what her feelings were. But I mean, she went on to create a wildly successful show. So I think everyone was lucky in that everyone got to make the show that they wanted to make.
Everybody went on and did well.
Yeah.
But who